Hey, welcome to part 2 of the CPCU 540 video series. In this video, we are breaking down the difficulty and a couple tips to passing your exam. And once again, this is presented by Jake and Associate PI. We are an independent organization. We are independent of the institutes and the CPCU designation. I'm CPCU myself. I passed my CPCU 540. I'm just here to prepare you for your exam. And as I mentioned, this is video number 2 of our 4-part CPCU 540 video series. If you want to check out the other videos, go to AssociatePI.com/videos. As we touched on briefly in our last video, video number 1 of the video series, this is the hardest exam. It's the most failed exam. It has a pass rate of 70%, meaning that 1 out of every 4, out of every 3 students is going to fail this exam. So now we're going to get into why this exam is so difficult. And I touched on it a little bit in video number 1, but there's one main reason, and that's because this exam is very math intensive. There are over 80 formulas in the content of this exam that you need to be familiar with. Not all of them are that important, but there are 80 that you have to know how to use and apply and you have to memorize. So that's exactly why this exam is so difficult. You not only have to memorize the formulas, but you also have to know how to apply them. You're going to be given real-life scenarios. You have to read the scenario, take out the important information from the scenario, apply it to a formula, crunch the numbers, and come to a mathematic answer. So it's very difficult. Now, here's a couple tips. This exam is difficult, so this is my recommendation on how you can properly study and prepare yourself for this exam. Tip number 1 is very important. Make a cheat sheet. That means while you are studying your textbooks, your courses, whatever you're studying, take notes. Write down every single formula from the exam. There's going to be over 80 of them. You just want to make a cheat sheet so you can go back to it later and just run through all of your notes, all the formulas, rather than flipping back through the 400-page textbook. There's a ton of content, so take shorthand notes that you can refer back to later. Tip number 2 is practice as much as possible. And as a side note, practice without looking at your notes. So you want to treat it like it's the real exam, but you want to take at least 300, probably 400 practice exam questions before this one. You want to get really used to reading the formula, reading the question, and applying the formula. So take as many practice questions as you can. That's vitally important. You want to get used to the question format, the type of questions that you're going to see. So practice as much as possible. And tip number 3 is something that I personally did, and what I found very effective was as soon as I got to the exam, I wrote down all the formulas that I could remember. So I essentially made myself a cheat sheet at the exam, because when you go to the exam at the Prometric Testing Center, they're going to give you a scrap piece of paper that you can take notes on. So what I did was I tried to cram as many of the formulas that I could remember into my mind, and as soon as I sat down, I wrote them all down. I just kind of dumped them all onto a piece of paper so I didn't have to remember them, or I didn't have to worry about being stressed in the middle of the exam and trying to remember a formula, because that's difficult. So instead of that, go in, use your scrap paper, and just dump all the formulas you can remember onto the piece of paper so you can refer back to your cheat sheet during the exam. So that's really important. That's something I did, and it really helped me pass my exam, because it's almost impossible to remember all 80 formulas. You have to be familiar with them, so at least, remember the important ones, and we'll tell you which ones are important. So remember those and write them down on your exam. Now here is my recommended plan of action for studying. There is a lot of content on this exam. It's very difficult. So here's what I recommend, how you can pass your exam in just 3 weeks of studying. This is the exact schedule I used and what we now recommend to our students to use to pass their exams as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. So the first step is days 1 through 12. There's 12 chapters, so each day for the next 12 days, read 1 chapter per day and make a cheat sheet, as I mentioned. Write down all the formulas and take notes on every single chapter. That's important. If you don't read the course, if you don't read the textbook, you're not going to pass. So you have to, whatever study material you're using, you have to read it fully. Days 13 and 14, study your cheat sheet. So now you have all your notes dumped down onto paper, onto whatever if you use Word, if you type it on the computer, you have all your notes there. Go and review them and familiarize yourself with the formulas. There's a ton of formulas, so go back through, read each one, quiz yourself on them, really study your notes for the next 2 days after you read the book, and consume the content, understand the content, and just memorize it. Days 15 and 16. So after you are now familiar with the content, it's time to start taking some practice quizzes. So go back, take a recap quiz, meaning a quiz that kind of tests you on each chapter, each topic, each concept of each chapter. So these are not necessarily formatted like the actual exam, but they are more definition and concept-based questions, asking you about the formulas. And you want to take probably at least 300 of these. I always recommend you want to take a ton so that you can just get the content down and really memorize the concepts. And then day 17 and day 18, you are taking a full practice exam. So take practice exam number 1 on day 17. This should be a full 85 question practice exam formatted exactly like the real CPCU 540 exam. You want to give yourself a real exam experience. You want to be taking questions that are formatted like you're going to see them on the exam so that you can prepare yourself for the type of questions that you're going to see. So day number 1, take an exam like that and try and get as many correct as you can. Take it without your notes. You don't want to look at your notes. That's important because you want to treat it like a real exam. Take note of all the ones that you got wrong and go back to your study guide, update your notes, and restudy a little bit. Day 18, same thing, but another new 85 question practice exam. Same thing, formatted just like the exam. Make note of what you get wrong, go back, restudy, add it to your notes. Then, day 19 and 20, you are restudying based on your practice exam results. Look at the sections that you're struggling with, look at what you're having trouble with, and really focus on what you are not getting correct. So at this point, you should have a pretty good understanding of the majority of the content. Go back and practice a little bit more, restudy your notes, retake some recap quizzes, retake some practice exams, and really nail down those topics that you are not understanding. And then finally, day 21, the last day of the 3-week period that we're giving you, retake your practice exam and target 90% correct. Then you are ready to take your exam. So you can either take it on day 21, day 22, whatever you prefer, but after 3 weeks, using this schedule, you will be ready to pass your exam. We've had thousands of students use this schedule, and it's worked, and they pass their exam with less time, more efficiently, and this is really the way to go, to just get this exam done as quick as possible. And that's it. That wraps up video number 2 of our CPCU 540 video series. Again, if you want a free practice exam study guide and our list of the important formulas that you will be given on your exam, because there are some that you don't need to memorize, go download our practice exam and our bundle of CPCU 540 content at AssociatePI.com/practice exam. So here we're giving you everything that we mentioned in this slide. So go get another practice exam so that you can begin to prepare for this exam, because it's very difficult. And if you want more content for the CPCU 540, go to AssociatePI.com/CPCU 540. Here we give you all these free blog posts, including the difficulty of the exam, the important topics, tips and tricks, and the formulas that you need to know. And as I mentioned, this is video number 2 of our CPCU 540 video series. If you want to watch the other videos, go to AssociatePI.com/videos. And that's it. That wraps up video number 2. We'll see you on the next video. Good luck on the 540 exam.